Susan Page is Washington Bureau Chief for USA Today. She is in our Washington Bureau. All right, so Susan, what did you make of Mr. Trump's Twitter comments on this dispute over the American naval drone in the South China Sea?
I think they're very hard to understand, and I got to tell you, there was a James Woolsey, the former CIA director, was on one of the Sunday shows this morning. He was asked about him, and he said, I can't keep up with the tweets. So even James Woolsey, who's an advisor to Donald Trump, was unable to kind of explain what's going on here. Keep in mind, this is a pretty serious incident. This is an incident in a region that's the site of increasing tensions in the South China Sea at a time when China is very concerned about the new president and the stance that he's going to take toward them. So it almost seems laughable, the idea of telling him, well, keep our drone. But it is something I think foreign policy experts are concerned about.
Let's move on to Russia's possible interference in the election. Republican John McCain says he wants a select committee to investigate it, but the top Republicans in Congress, Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell, say that existing committees can do the job. Susan, do you think this is going to be a sticking point in the next Congress?
Yes, I do, because Mitch McConnell, I think, is quite determined to keep this under the purview of the Intelligence Committee. That would be probably a less public investigation than we would see if there was a bigger select committee pursuing it. So I think this is going to be an issue of some dispute. There is concern among some Democrats that this issue of Russia hacking of this election will not get the kind of serious consideration they think it deserves when the new Republican president, the new Republican Congress takes over.
On Face the Nation, Susan, Trump transition advisor Kellyanne Conway said that President Obama was facing political pressure from Democrats to respond to Russia. Has Mr. Obama, do you think, been effective in countering that argument?
Well, actually, President Obama, I think, tried to be as restrained as possible in his news conference yesterday in talking about this issue, to not kind of escalate it into a partisan way. In fact, he faces a lot of criticism from Democrats that he didn't do enough before the election to focus attention on the Russia hack. So I think it is inaccurate to say that he is trying to act in a way to provoke some partisan reaction. Quite the reverse. I think Democrats are worried he's not done nearly enough to provoke.
Susan, the Electoral College, as you know, is voting on Monday to affirm Mr. Trump's election. Anti-Trump groups are trying to pressure Republican electors to vote against Mr. Trump. These campaigns won't change the vote, so how much do they really matter, Susan?
Well, I think that a lot of Democrats are pretty frustrated that Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, lost the Electoral College, that there are these accusations backed up by the Intelligence Committee of Russia hacking, meddling in our election. So they're trying to focus some attention on that, but there are, as of yet, no signs that they'll be successful in changing the outcome tomorrow of the Electoral College vote. It looks all but certain that Donald Trump is going to be elected president on Monday.
Susan, let's go back to what you just said a moment ago about Mr. Obama seeming restrained and exhibiting a sense of restraint in that final news conference as president. He was cautious and careful not to criticize Mr. Trump directly. What is the balance that President Obama is trying to strike in these final days, you think?
You know, I think that presidents almost uniquely have a sense of respect for other presidents, even when they're of a different party and maybe with real ideological differences, because more than anyone, they understand how difficult the job is, and maybe especially when you're first taken over and undergo that transition where you're figuring out all what responsibilities, the burden of the presidency. And I think that President Obama has tried to be pretty careful about that. He may also be hoping to shape in some ways what it is President-elect Trump does once he's in office on some of the Obama initiatives, on whether he might keep relations going with Cuba. Maybe he'll retain aspects of the Affordable Care Act. So I think you do see President Obama being pretty careful. And the question is, will he continue to do that when he's actually out of office and Donald Trump is taking steps as president?
All right, Susan Page in our Washington newsroom. Susan, thanks so much.
Hey, thank you, Elaine.